The story begins with a dangerous criminal operation that immediately puts the audience into the middle of an international conspiracy. At the center of the story are two completely different men: Khalid, a highly trained Interpol officer, and Ghali, a notorious criminal who knows the underground world better than anyone. Khalid has spent years chasing criminals across borders. He is intelligent, disciplined, and committed to his job. Ghali, on the other hand, is unpredictable, ruthless, and extremely clever. He has connections with some of the most dangerous criminals in the world. Their paths finally cross during a high-risk operation. Khalid tracks Ghali down and manages to capture him after a violent confrontation. For Khalid, arresting Ghali is a major victory. Ghali is taken into custody, and Khalid believes that one of his most dangerous enemies has finally been removed from the streets. But Khalid does not realize that capturing Ghali is only the beginning. Soon, Interpol discovers information about a mysterious international criminal organization known as Seven Dogs. The organization is involved in a huge drug operation involving a powerful synthetic drug called Pink Lady. Pink Lady is not an ordinary street drug. Its distribution could create a massive criminal network across the region. The people behind the operation are extremely powerful, and they have members operating in different countries. The biggest problem is that nobody knows exactly who all the members of Seven Dogs are. However, there is one person who may know: Ghali. Khalid is ordered to return to the case. He is not happy about it. He had already hoped to leave dangerous field operations behind and concentrate on his personal life. Khalid is also preparing for his marriage to Rabab. He wants to build a peaceful future with her, away from criminals, guns, and international missions. But duty comes first. Khalid goes back to Ghali and makes him an offer. If Ghali helps Interpol find Seven Dogs, he could receive a reduction in his punishment. Ghali agrees, but Khalid knows better than to trust him completely. The two men begin an unusual partnership. One is an Interpol officer. The other is the criminal he recently arrested. Their personalities are completely different. Khalid follows rules, while Ghali survives by breaking them. At first, they constantly argue. Khalid wants to follow the official investigation, while Ghali prefers violence, manipulation, and intimidation. But Ghali has something Khalid desperately needs: knowledge of the criminal underworld. He begins giving Khalid clues about the organization. The investigation takes them from one dangerous location to another. Every clue brings them closer to the people controlling the Pink Lady operation. But every step also creates a new danger. The members of Seven Dogs are not ordinary criminals. They are experienced, well-connected, and prepared for anyone who tries to expose them. Khalid and his team begin tracking their targets while trying to keep their own identities protected. During one operation, Ghali proves exactly why Khalid cannot completely trust him. Instead of simply allowing the authorities to interrogate a suspect, Ghali takes matters into his own hands. His violent methods create problems for the investigation and put the entire mission at risk. Khalid becomes furious. He tells Ghali that if he wants to survive the mission, he must follow the rules. Ghali simply reminds him that rules are the reason criminals like Seven Dogs have survived for so long. Despite their disagreements, the two continue working together. Slowly, Khalid begins to understand Ghali. Behind Ghali's criminal personality is a man who has also lost control of his own life. He has a family and a past that he cannot escape. Khalid realizes that Ghali is not simply motivated by money. At the same time, Ghali begins to respect Khalid. Khalid is not corrupt. He genuinely believes in his mission. That creates an unusual bond between them. They still do not completely trust each other, but they begin to depend on each other. As the investigation continues, another important figure enters the story: Julia Leone. Julia is sophisticated, powerful, and extremely dangerous. She is connected to the criminal organization and knows how to manipulate the people around her. Khalid and Ghali attempt to get close to her while hiding their true intentions. But Julia is smarter than they expect. She eventually discovers Khalid's real identity. The operation collapses. Khalid and Ghali are captured. For a moment, it looks as though the entire mission has failed. Khalid realizes that the enemy has been several steps ahead of them. But his team refuses to abandon him. A rescue operation is launched, and Khalid is eventually saved. However, Ghali disappears. This creates a major problem. Khalid's superiors had warned him from the beginning that Ghali could betray them. Now that Ghali has escaped, their fears appear to have come true. Khalid has to continue the investigation without him. But he knows that Ghali is still connected to the criminal world. Meanwhile, the Pink Lady operation is getting closer to completion. The criminals are preparing to move a major shipment. If the shipment reaches its destination, the drug network could expand dramatically. Khalid realizes that he has very little time left. He and his team follow a series of clues that eventually lead them toward the final stage of the operation. But this is where the real danger begins. The criminal organization has prepared for an attack. The final operation becomes a race against time. Khalid and his team move toward the location where the Pink Lady shipment is expected to pass. The situation quickly turns into chaos. Vehicles race across the desert. Armed criminals open fire. Explosions shake the area. Khalid fights his way through the attackers while trying to reach the shipment. And then Ghali returns. For a moment, Khalid does not know whether Ghali has come to help him or betray him. Ghali has spent his entire life surviving in the criminal world. He has every reason to save himself. But instead of walking away, he chooses to help Khalid. The two men fight together. Their differences disappear as they focus on one objective: stopping the Pink Lady shipment. The final confrontation becomes a massive battle between the authorities and the criminal organization. Khalid pushes forward despite being surrounded by armed enemies. Ghali uses his knowledge of the criminals to anticipate their moves. Together, they manage to disrupt the operation. The Pink Lady shipment is stopped before it can reach its final destination. The criminal network suffers a major defeat. Khalid has finally accomplished what he set out to do. But the victory comes with a price. Throughout the mission, Khalid's personal life has been placed in danger. His relationship with Rabab has also suffered because of his work. For Khalid, stopping criminals is important, but he also realizes that he cannot spend the rest of his life sacrificing everything for his job. After the final battle, the dust finally begins to settle. The Pink Lady threat has been stopped, and the immediate danger is over. Khalid looks back at everything that happened. At the beginning of the story, he believed that criminals and police officers belonged on opposite sides. But his partnership with Ghali changed that idea. Ghali was still a criminal. Khalid never forgot that. But during the mission, Ghali proved that even someone with a dark past can make a different choice. Their relationship becomes one of the most interesting parts of the story. They began as enemies. Then they became reluctant partners. And by the end, they had developed a strange level of respect for each other. The movie closes on the idea that sometimes the person standing beside you can be someone you never expected to trust. Khalid entered the mission believing that he could control everything through discipline and rules. Ghali entered it believing that survival was all that mattered. But together they discovered that both approaches had limits. The mission forced them to change. Khalid learned that trust can sometimes come from the most unexpected person. Ghali learned that his past did not necessarily have to determine every choice he made. The final victory is therefore not only about stopping a drug shipment. It is also about redemption, loyalty, and the possibility of changing one's path. The story of Seven Dogs ultimately revolves around this unlikely partnership between an Interpol officer and a criminal. They begin as enemies. They are forced to work together. They fight against a much bigger threat. And in the end, their partnership becomes the key to stopping the dangerous Pink Lady operation. The movie combines international crime, undercover missions, betrayal, comedy, explosions, gunfights, car chases, and large-scale action. But beneath all the action is a simple idea. Sometimes, to defeat the most dangerous enemy, you have to trust the person you least expected to stand beside you. And that is what makes Khalid and Ghali's journey the heart of Seven Dogs.